Crying in public was not a simple expression of emotion. In the Middle Ages, it was a risk. The world was harsh, immediate, and unforgiving. And to display vulnerability openly exposed a person to judgment, suspicion, and danger. Tears were not private. They could mark weakness, signal instability, or draw unwanted attention. In a society where survival depended on perception as much as strength, showing emotion was a form of visibility few could afford. From childhood, people learned restraint. Emotions were processed internally, behind the mask of composure. To cry was to reveal more than sorrow. It was to expose limits, fears, and needs to others who might exploit them. The social cost of tears was immediate. Neighbors, peers, or authority could interpret them as incompetence, disobedience, or dependence. Public grief or fear could invite criticism, ridicule, or even punishment. The environment amplified these risks. Homes were crowded, streets narrow, and communities tightly knit. Everyone could witness a breakdown, and each witness could carry the story further. Rumors, judgments, and evaluations traveled fast. Vulnerability in one moment could become a lasting mark on reputation. People learned to manage their bodies as carefully as their work, understanding that even involuntary signs could have social consequences. Psychologically, restraint became habit. Emotions were redirected inward. Anger, despair, and fear were internalized and regulated silently. Crying was transformed from a relief mechanism into a liability. Individuals learned to measure sensations, suppress impulses, and maintain an exterior that signaled stability, competence, and endurance. Emotional self-control was a strategy for survival. Authority and culture reinforced these lessons. Social and moral codes framed public display as improper, childish, or shameful. Compliance and fortitude were rewarded, while visible weakness attracted scrutiny. Silence, composure, and measured reaction were valued over authenticity. People internalized these standards, understanding that survival often required not only physical strength, but mastery over the body's signals. By adulthood, the consequences of crying publicly were clear. The risk of social, economic, or political repercussions outweighed any temporary relief. Even in moments of private despair, restraint shaped expression. The mind and body learned to anticipate the gaze of others, to calculate exposure, and to manage emotional reality through control. Crying was not absent, it was secret, private, and contained. As the habit of restraining tears became ingrained, it shaped the medieval mind and society in profound ways. People learned to convert emotion into action or endurance. Grief, fear, and frustration were processed silently, carried within the body rather than expressed outwardly. The absence of public display did not mean absence of feeling. It meant that feeling had to be managed carefully, hidden from observation, and made compatible with survival. This internalization influenced social interactions. Relationships were cautious. Trust was measured, because revealing vulnerability could shift perception and power dynamics. Those who showed tears risked exclusion or ridicule. Silence and composure became social currency, as essential to community life as labor or obedience. People learned to assess others' emotions subtly while masking their own, creating a constant negotiation of perception. Physically, restraint became second nature. Bodies were trained to suppress visible signs of pain, fear, or sorrow. Breathing, posture, and facial expression were controlled instinctively. Crying, shaking, or sobbing were dangerous signals, potential evidence of weakness. This control shaped identity. Endurance became a marker of maturity, reliability, and social competence. Those who could not maintain composure were vulnerable not only to judgment, but to material and social consequences. Cultural expectations reinforced these behaviors. Norms, religious teachings, and social hierarchy all emphasized restraint. Public emotion was framed as disorderly or inappropriate. Display was associated with instability, dependency, or moral failing. Conformity demanded mastery of the self, of appearance, and of the body's signals. Emotional regulation became inseparable from the rules of participation in society. Psychologically, living under these conditions created constant tension. Anxiety, grief, and fear were internalized, shaping thought and decision-making. People anticipated judgment, evaluated risk, and moderated their reactions continuously. The mind adapted to operate under continuous pressure, weighing the social cost of every gesture. Emotional survival became as critical as physical survival. Over time, the normalization of emotional restraint produced a society in which vulnerability was dangerous. People could not rely on empathy alone. They had to measure and manage every expression. Crying in public became not an act of weakness alone, but a potential threat to security, status, and relationships. Silence, composure, and careful control of the body were strategies of life itself. Ultimately, the risk of crying shaped both individuals and communities. Life demanded endurance not only of the body, but of expression. Emotional restraint became a survival mechanism, a social requirement, and a cultural expectation. The ability to carry grief, fear, and pain silently determined who could navigate the harsh realities of daily life. In this world, tears were private, fear was quiet, and survival depended on mastering the most intimate signals of the self.